I don't have it with me. Tell Java.
Do
You think I had a choice?
We would be honored if you would join us.
Hello everyone. I recently got this nice Han Solo Lego blaster from Etsy and I thought it would be fun to turn it into a full-size one. The seller was kind enough to give me a list of all the parts with the numbers. With this list, I use an online software called mecabricks. This software is free and allows you to generate every existing Lego pieces in 3D. There are a lot of applications like mecabricks out there, but what's cool about this one is that you can actually export a 3D model out of it, which was a key factor in my plan. These 3D models have the right proportion but are really low in resolution. Since I was planning on 3D printing everything, I had to remodel each part at an higher resolution to help me out a little bit here. To figure out the full-size dimension of the blaster, I simply scaled up the image to my hand and took the measure of one part. I then used the same measurement in Cura and applied the same scale factor on all the other parts. Since I'm way too cheap to afford a resin printer, I use my two PLA machines. One is a Monoprice mini printer version 2. I highly recommend this one for beginners. It is a small printer, but it's inexpensive and very easy to use out of the box. There is no assembly required. My second one is the Anycubic Mega S. Also inexpensive with very little assembly, but way bigger. Believe me, I'm not really good at 3D printing, so they have to be really easy to use for a decent quality. I printed each pieces individually simply because I like to reduce the risk factor of messing up something. I could have easily made a couple at a time, but as I mentioned, I'm terrible at it. PLA printings requires a lot of cleanup. First step being the removal of the support material, and sometimes it's not all that easy to remove. Now the real fun begins. Of course, I wanted a smooth finish for the blaster and sadly, PLA looks really bad off the bat. If I had used a resin printer, I could have skipped directly to the part where I paint the gun. Resin requires almost no cleanup. Well, it was time for me to pay the price for being, let's say, cost effective on my printers. I always like to start by a rough sanding to remove a first layer of plastic. I also use my deburring tool to clean up all the edges. Help is always welcome in my shop. The little one is a good trooper and was quite happy to step in. The next step in my process is to cover pretty much everything with Bondo. Bondo is a body filler for cars, and the touch-up spot putty is perfect to fill out most of the ugly line left by the printers. Bondo is very durable, dries fast, and sands easily. I applied it mostly with my finger, but I also like to use a brush to get to the corners that my clumsy fingers cannot reach. I like to use my homemade dust collector. It's simply a shop vac connected to a dust hood covered with a perforated board. This simple setup helps me to reduce the particles in the air when sanding. I would say that pretty much everything you sand is bad for your lungs, so wearing a mask on top of a dust collecting system is always a good way to go. Time to proceed with the primer filler. Primer filler is also used in automobile repair. It's a thick spray that fills the minor imperfection and improves top coat adhesion. I heavily sprayed all parts many times. I used my Lazy Susan table to make sure I sprayed every part from all possible angles. And don't be shy, I emptied 2 full cans on this blaster. Also, don't worry too much about messing up. Primer filler can easily be sanded down. At this point, the result should already look pretty good. But yeah, few lines were still visible. And as you probably figured out by now, an extra round of sanding was of course needed. For those of you who think that 3D printing is easy, well, as you can see, for a nice finish, there's a bit more to it than that. Before the final paint job, we made sure to remove all the dust from the pieces with a rag to get a clean finish on the blaster. Another layer of primer filler was then applied for an even coating. Before painting everything black with a rattle can, I manually painted all the inner section of the parts. It is pretty hard to properly get these areas with a spray can without making a real mess. I then used brown acrylic to paint the handle of the blaster. Of course I could have used my airbrush for that, but I was simply too lazy to clean it. I applied 4 layers for full coverage. I was ready for the black. I always use flat paint because I prefer to control the finish with a clear coat at the end. The trick here is to go really gently to avoid any dripping. Drippings are not cool. When it happens, you need to let it dry, sand it down, and start over again. So the name of the game here is take your time and do it in multiple passes. I was now getting ready for the final assembly. When it comes to this, I like to clean up everything and start fresh. Using the little blaster as my guide, I started to assemble everything piece by piece. Most parts clip really well together, while others, not so much. Let's just say that they required a bit more persuasion. I know it's not the most complex job I have made, but sometimes it simply feels good to build something brainless. One of them had to be glued because it was too loose, but that was okay since I was not planning on taking the blaster apart in the near future. It is truly satisfying when you see your work coming together like this. This is a great feeling when you build something. The last touch was to seal everything together with a shiny clear coat. This coating has basically 3 functions. It helps to protect the paint job, smooths the surface even more, but most of all, makes it look the part with a glossy finish.